What is up, guys? Welcome into another episode of From the Wing. I am Christian Clark, the Pelicans beat writer for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. The preseason is over. The Pelicans had a short little preseason schedule. It was supposed to be 4 games. It ended up only being 3 games. Thanks, Hurricane Milton, which Grant Cardone said the government created in order to disrupt West Florida. I think that's something I saw on one of our great social media platforms. Anyway, over some positives from preseason. Jordan Hawkins and Yves Missi. Yves Missi, not Yves Missi. Everyone, including the Pelicans head coach who keeps saying Yves. Yves Missi. We're going to talk about some concerns. Has there been any progress whatsoever? Are we still in kind of a bad place there? Zion and Ingram didn't play a minute together in the preseason. We're going to talk about Trey Murphy's extension. And at the end of the show, we're going to talk about the Starting 5 documentary on Netflix. I've seen 8 of those episodes so far. I've mostly enjoyed it. Going to go over, chew on some stuff that we've learned there. Adam, how are you doing today, buddy?
I am doing pretty solid. As everyone who is viewing can see, we got hoodies on because we got some sweet, sweet Mother Nature's relief outside. But it's going to be in the 40s to start the day tomorrow. So we're going to jump straight into like actually being cold. I'm going to wear this not as a prop. I'm just going to need it to keep my little ears warm.
Dude, it was so nice when I woke up this morning, took the dog in a morning walk. I mean, the happiest person or thing in Louisiana is my very hairy dog when it gets in the 50s.
You're telling me I'm an owner of a Siberian Husky. She's a different being right now.
Yeah, it's a different quality of life for me and definitely my dog right now. It's fantastic. Oh my God, it should just be a holiday. It's one of the best days of the year. Like when it hits the 50s here after the months and months of heat and humidity. All right, before we get into it all, we are of course presented by Crescent Cannon, New Orleans' #1 cannabis company and the maker of the highly satisfying Crescent 9 THC seltzer, which I've got rolling tonight. Crescent 9 is uplifting, it's relaxing, and it's my favorite drink to sip on while I'm watching a game. The Sopranos for the 8th time. I think that's what I'm on now. My 8th watch of The Sopranos. I'm just skipping episodes. I'm, like watching the first 3 of season 3, and then I'm going to episode 8. It's nonsensical. Crescent Cannon has 7 THC beverage flavors ranging from the 5 milligrams to the 50 milligrams because it's made with hemp-derived THC. Crescent 9 is illegal for adults from coast to coast. It's also registered with the Louisiana Department of Health for compliance here. You can get it online, crescentcanada.com. Rouse's, Canseco's, Zaparta's, Total Wine, a whole lot more. You must be 21 years or older to purchase or consume THC products. Consult with your doctor before using any cannabis product if you have a medical condition or are taking medication. Adam, what was your preseason viewing experience like? Let's start with the good stuff. What are your big bullet point good takeaways from these 3 games that we watched these last few weeks?
More evidence, number 1, with a bullet, more evidence that Zion is in the condition and the point in basketball that we thought he was. He came out bat out of hell, doing everything well, right out the gate, just not a question. Didn't have to be concerned about it. And that's what we thought we were going to see, but you still have to wait and see it. And we saw it. He was doing everything. He was so comfortable that, we got a little bit of the pull-up stuff. We got a lot of early attempts when he saw 2- and 3-man defenses, just putting that little push shot up from 5 to 7 feet away. So Zion, number 1 with a bullet. Other than that, Missi gave us reason to believe. And I think, ask us a couple of months ago and we're saying super, super raw athlete upside, give me 2 to 3 years. And there's been some offensive and defensive instinct stuff that makes you feel like maybe he comes along faster than that. Maybe
it's months instead of years.
Yeah, maybe maybe you luck out, and even though you don't have the Derek Lively protection of a Luka Doncic, you can still maybe carry this guy along for a few months, and by the end of the year, he's really useful. And then, you know, the fan favorite, the one that Twitter wants to talk about, Jordan Hawkins, playing, you know, light speed, getting into every single action he can as fast as he can, and just ripping shots.
How much of Hawkins being Pelicans Twitter's favorite player right now is, you know, the new thing? It's always the new thing that we love, because you can't really there hasn't been time to see all the faults. His game is aesthetically pleasing. It's just pretty to look at, and it's also like efficient. Like the nerds can love it too, because he's going to get up a ton of threes. How much is it each of those three things?
It's a perfect storm, man. We love to critique our coaching staffs, and he hasn't had this like rocket strapped to his butt start. We got the early overutilization in his career, and he popped off, and he's had big time scoring nights. So he gave people this major flash where they're like, this guy's a killer. I want to root for that dude dumping 40 on somebody's head. And that's the part that we know is there. And it's hard to let that go. That's very romantic. But the thing that's more important to me during this preseason is that he has not, there's been a couple, there's only really been like 2 or 3 times where he blew the defense, where like he didn't rotate onto a guy, missed an assignment, and we left somebody wide open. For the most part, his body position, his speed to the point of attack has been much, much better and way more intense. He's going up harder for rebounds a little bit earlier. Just looks like the message has landed with him that like that stuff is going to be what gives him the opportunity to rip those shots.
Yeah, you're exactly right. He's just got to be better defensively than he was in year one. I mean, it won't matter how good he is offensively if he's at the level he was at defensively. It's going to be hard for him to be in the rotation. We're going to be sitting there saying, "Gosh, dang, why is Javonte Green playing over him?" So that end of the floor is going to be better offensively. I love his confidence. One of the games that's ingrained in my mind from last year. And look, obviously there was a Dallas game where he won for 34. There was a Denver game where I think he had 31. But I'm thinking of a game at Oklahoma City in early November. He went 4 of 19 from the floor. They had a bunch of guys out that night. But I remember just sitting there thinking, I'm like, dang, this is like this guy's 5th game, and he's out here trying to get 19 shots up. I mean, they had nobody to score that night. But I just remember being struck. I was like, this guy is going to go out there and do his. And just because he missed the last shot or the last 2 shots or the last 3 shots, it's not really affecting how he's thinking about shooting the basketball right now. And I actually came away from that encouraged a little bit, even though it was a horrific 4 of 19 shooting performance. I like how much he believes in himself. It feels like healthy confidence to me. It is beautiful to watch. It is a very aesthetically pleasing game. Like, it's fun to watch how high he gets on his jumper, how quick he can get it off. You know, I think over the summer, I was like, I think he can be a 3-level scorer, and I think I got mocked a little bit. And we'll see how he does. But I do think he's more than just a 3-point shooter too. Like, I think it's true that he has to be playing off advantage creators. Like, he can't do it himself. He's got to run around screens or just have advantages created for him. But if he's having advantages created for him and he's attacking closeouts, or, you know, his guy's getting knocked half a step off because Hawkins is coming around a screen, he can do more than just hit threes. I think he can score from a lot of different places.
Yeah, he's got a below average handle for, you know, a starting caliber player in his role and position. And you see it when he makes like an early turn without the ball. You see the ball get real loose and bounce up real high and cause a turnover. That stuff's still there. And because of the lack of size, like he pounds the ball real hard. Like, he plays so fast that all it takes is for him to go a little bit too fast. That ball gets up high and it's out of there. He's just not going to have size advantages ever. That's never going to be a thing. You're going to hope that his constant speed and Rip Hamilton-esque running all over the floor and just getting stuff off in motion just drives people nuts, and everything else has to be confrontation with his hands on the defensive end so that he can survive out there and be that level of pest. But yeah, he's never going to have the drive through a guy kind of stuff, but he doesn't seem to need it if the defense can just be good enough to keep him on the floor, because like you said, the dude's got either that he has the mentality of an NHL goaltender or the memory of a Labrador. I'm not sure which, but one of those two things is at play in there. That man fears nothing.
One of the interesting things we saw this preseason, he got to the line quite a bit. He went 13 of 14 at the line. You know, he definitely was a guy who had a lot of gravity as a three-point shooter last year. I mean, I didn't look it up before the show, honestly, but it felt like there were a handful of times when he get fouled on threes. Like you already saw that last year, like the JJ Redick thing of like, they're so terrified of him as a shooter. They're running into him and fouling him when he's getting up. I mean, he's just got so much gravity, and you know, his form inspires so much fear. I think he could be able to get to the line a lot. I think that would be a really interesting development there.
He tried to get those calls last year and he did not get them. He had those opportunities. He had those foot touches, those landing space defenders. Like he had that stuff and he just wasn't going to get those calls. Something that stuck out to me too is like, it's preseason and there's like a neon sign on his head that says not a rookie anymore. And the calls started coming and you're like, wait a second. Cause this is a thing that, like, you know, we talk about theatrics with trying to get to the line, orchestrating getting to the line, but this is a make or break skill for a lot of people in terms of making them a middle of the road value to a really, really high end value offensively. If he is doing, and I'm going to invoke the name because he's the best to ever do this. But it is like the frame of doing it. If he is going to shoot Curry-like 3-point, rockets and create those closeout landing space issues for defenders and get those calls, it's going to make it easier to live with the defensive stuff, because and it's the most efficient shot on the court and he knocks it down like a seasoned pro. So yeah, there's a lot of intriguing stuff with him. Size is always going to be a problem, but we saw bad summer league from him in an overutilized, like, ball pounding role because they had no point guards. And that's clearly not him, and it's not going to be him. Playing off people, though, as a dude that's just going to light it up and get more shots up than he does minutes played, all good.
And I'll tell you, offensively, he is a player who fits with Zion Williamson. He'd shoot the piss out of the ball. He moves. He plays fast. I think that's one thing that we probably haven't talked about enough. Zion likes to move the ball. I think he likes playing with guys who make quick decisions. Honestly, I think that's one of the biggest factors why him and Ingram just have not looked great together in the minutes we've seen. I think one likes to play kind of fast, and the other one likes to play kind of slow. But I mean, like, please give us Jordan Hawkins and Trey Murphy with Zion Williamson this year. Like, please give us that offensively. And please let those guys be okay defensively too.
And look, and it already makes you wonder, just seeing the little glimpse we saw from Missi with the starters, what that would look like if you have the hyper athlete rim runner that can turn a block into an alley-oop on the other end with those guys, with a couple of shooters and Zion. Like,
you're talking about a specific play. I think it was in the third quarter where Yves Missi was guarding Alperen Şengün, and Şengün drove left. Şengün's really good at getting into your body and shooting these weird layups. It really is like baby Jokic kind of. And Missi blocked it, and I think he got it with his left hand, and then he ran down the court, and then Brandon Ingram threw this nice lob pass, and he just laid it up, and you're like, whoa. And there were a couple of those whoa moments in the preseason. There really were. I mean, he blocked 6 shots in 50 minutes. The problem is that he also fouled 11 times in those 50 minutes. I mean, he absolutely has the ability to be a guy in the NBA. I think he will be something in the NBA. I feel like I'm already confident saying that. Like, he'll be a rotation guy at bare minimum in the NBA. How long will it take? That I don't know. There's a lot to learn, but I was overall just encouraged by what I saw from him in these 3 games.
Yeah, we want him to be more than Bismack Biyombo is the hope. But as of right now, like, look, Biyombo gave people problems for a little blip, that athleticism and shot blocking, not much else he can do, but there have already been little things. There's another play that immediately comes to mind offensively. He caught a drop off on the baseline, took a power dribble down the baseline under the rim, and he passed his defender and came back to the face of the goal, jumped like from the baseline out into the court and made it off the backboard. And that's just, there's not that many bigs in the league that can do that. And he did it instinctively and it looked great and it went in. And I was just like, all right. Cause we know he has some of this, like this dribble spin move stuff that he's done in college where you're like, okay, nobody's even taught you this stuff yet. And you can already pull off some of these things. He does have some of those just instinctual and I don't know how, I guess like ballerina-esque athletic moves to get to the rim. And you see it with his defense, with his shot blocking, but he jumps a lot and he swings those arms a lot and he swings them at everybody. So we're gonna have to get that stuff taken care of. But like we said, come draft time, if there's one thing that you're going to trust Willie to do with that kid, it's to help him with defense. So if you can, if we can just tamper down the number of times he swipes, or look, it's his rookie year, just use all the fouls. Just use them all. Just make sure that if you use them, it better be good. Don't give me none of this little Olay stuff where you barely tap his wrist. You're going to grab him, pull that arm down, like make sure the shot doesn't get off, wrap him up. Yeah, lots of inspiring stuff.
I think I said this on the podcast over the summer. The way it was described to me, right around draft time was, look, we feel like we're getting some of the same stuff we got with Jackson Hayes from an athletic standpoint, but the approach is just way better. We feel so much more confident that he's going to take this seriously. I'll just put it like this. I think if Yves Missi does not make the Rising Stars game this year, there's a 0% chance there's a video of him telling the NBA to, you know what? I just don't think we'll see that from Yves Missi. I don't see that in his future.
Oh man, the memories. We have a little bit of that again. We're pretending like we don't know what positions people are going to play, that we don't want to say them out loud because we don't want to bum anybody out. I swear it's like a time warp.
Yeah, Herb Jones. He's actually going to be their starting center, even though Herb Jones weighs 195 pounds.
Yeah, Herb Jones, the starting center, that we're just saying to avoid that Zion's the starting center. Look, and semantics, because we'll be obviously comfortably switching all that stuff whenever those guys are out there. So no one's really the center, but the guy that's going to be pressured in the paint the most and to clean that stuff up, like, yeah, Herb will do some of it and Zion will do some of it, and we just won't call him that. But anyway, quick shout out to the one positive that I'll give BI, since everybody else seemed to like just kind of jump on the shot profile of the night and be like, oh, nope, still the same dude. The places he's going on the floor and how quickly he took the 3-pointers when he first started the game were the guy you need to see. He started off running to the corners and like doing the stuff that, like, if this is going to work, that's what he's got to do. And yeah, he started dribbling into his mid-range and taking those shots and stuff, because sometimes he's going to do that, and he should do that because he's one of the best in the league at doing it. He did also pass up on, a kick out 3 that he drove into a tough mid-range. And that's the one that I've always, like, those are the ones I don't want to see. I don't want to see you pass up the open 3-point attempt to go into the harder shot where the defender is. But I just, saw a little bit of, this is the role that he's going to have to be in. And he made those shots, and you're like, all right, if you can just do that. And I wonder how much of that, like how much of the mid-range stuff is going to be available when Zion's there. Cause like part of this too, with him pressuring the paint, is that we're struggling to. DeJounte has been working on some stuff with like fading off into just above the dunker spot.
I love how you pronounce DeJounte's name like he's like one of the best chefs in America. You're like, DeJounte.
A chef named DeJounte. Yeah, I could see that.
DeJounte is a visionary.
He's working on some stuff. Like his shot hasn't been going down very much, and it's been the same thing in all the games. The set shots are going in. If he goes straight up and down, it goes in. If he's on the move a little bit, they've just kind of all been just smacking iron.
Yeah. Okay. So this kind of leads in my concerns. Quick Pelicans Rockets take. Reed Shepherd is the best NBA player since John Stockton, who looks like a sales rep in the Pelicans ticket office. Like Reed Shepherd looks like one of those guys in like a Men's Warehouse, fitted a shirt or whatever, tucked into some khakis. I see who are sales rep in the Pelicans ticket office. Like the facial hair is great. He just looks like one of my frat bros at the University of Missouri, kind of.
Comes up to you in section 310 in his Van Heusen suit and says, "Hey, we're going to move you down to 150, Rigo."
And Reed Shepherd is nice. I mean, he is nasty. Dude. He's really good.
So good.
Yeah, I love it.
The biggest thing in that game and the biggest thing you've seen from him in preseason so far, he plays at exactly the same speed he played at college already. He plays at exactly the same speed, and he's playing more of a traditional guard role than he even did in college. So like this dude's doing point guard stuff and he's pulling up on you and he's going to bury it. And if you give him space, going to dribble and he's going to bury it from there. He's good.
But I mean, besides just like stupid 3-point shooting in college, catch and shoot off the dribble, it was the steals and the block stuff to me too, where it's like, oh, this guy's, he's an athlete.
And he picked off BI. He got that they tried to do that little entry pass over his head and it did not get there. And he picked it up and went the other way and scored.
Yeah. He's going to be great. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my biggest concern.
Rookie of the year in my heart.
Ooh. My biggest concern, and look, this won't matter at all if the Pelicans start 7-3 or 8-2. And then if they look bad, if they start 4-6, we're absolutely going to be coming back to this. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's the fact that whatever lineup the Pelicans used on Wednesday night against the Bulls, we did not get one single second of it in the preseason. How is that possible? The only dude that wasn't available was Trey Murphy. And I mean, look, that's unfortunate, but like everybody else is healthy right now. And we didn't get one single second of the lineup that we're going to see on Wednesday night. Brandon Ingram did not play the first 2 games of the preseason. From everything I've gathered, that was his choice. Zion Williamson did not play in the preseason finale. From what I gathered, that was his choice. It's just a bummer. We got no sample size of the lineup they're going to throw out there against Chicago.
I mean, I also think 7 minutes of it isn't going to really tip the scales either. We lost a game in here. So like not to be lost in this conversation, we were supposed to have 4 preseason games and we didn't. And we ended up having 3. And yeah, it's unfortunate, but we say preseason, and I would argue that's midseason form. So I would say that we're already preparing for the inevitable and, trying to get those secondary lineups rolling. Oh, that was dark. Yeah, it sucks that we didn't get to see them play together. It's the big question. I also know that like they've been seeing it. We haven't been seeing it, but they've been seeing it in camp and everything.
Yeah.
These preseason games have been, Houston played a lot of their starting lineup like well through that entire game the other day, which was a little wild. Like their starting front court was still there, but like alarm bells a little bit. Jabari Smith has been somebody that has like struggled a little bit to reach his potential in the league. He completely victimized the paint against us whenever he wanted to. And that's not something that he's been that good at. So if there's like a hint or like a bellwether of what the front court defense is going to look like, not great. So I'm intrigued, but at the same time, you made a comment about the, if they start 4-7 versus 7-4. This schedule is really, really unique this year with the way that we've moved into this, like these little Subway Series things where we play the same team twice in a couple of days. And it's all throughout the schedule. It's all over the NBA. It's how they've reduced travel. It's weird that we don't see Minnesota for 3 months, which is strange. There's a lot of weird stuff in there. If they start anything less than 7-4, it's going to be dark, because the mid-November stretch leading up to Thanksgiving is brutal, is really, truly brutal. So they have got to get some early wins. Like, I have a goal in my head of like as close to 500 or better by the deadline. And then you're having a great year. The road is not easy. They got to get the Portlands and Chicago and all that right out the gate. They've got to get that right, or there's going to be pressure immediately.
And there's no margin for error in the Western Conference. I mean, like it sounds like a cliche, but it's not. But I mean, 2 or 3 wins can be the difference between you're in the play-in for a 4th freaking straight year and you're getting home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs. I mean, 2 or 3 wins can determine that in the West with the way things are right now.
Yeah, and it's tough. Like, you look at that schedule, go matchup for matchup, look at the competitiveness of the front courts, look at the back-to-backs, look at the road travel. It is, once you get to, you could, like, I'm a realist, but I'm also an optimistic Pels fan, but I'm looking at teams that we never beat and teams that we do and teams that we never beat in their house, and, you know, the trouble that we've had with Orlando historically. It's easy to get yourself up to like 42, 43 wins, and every win after that, you can easily argue it the other way. And so the 53 to 56 wins does not feel attainable. It feels like the range of outcomes is pretty small. It feels like 43 to 49 is the window, and you're going to need every single one of them. So whatever advantage you can find, and that may mean like doing some brutal valuation of some of these games, looking at the front end of a back-to-back and saying, hey, look, we're going to let this one go because we need to win the other one. There's going to have to be some of that, especially while we don't have a full center rotation.
What 5 do you think Willie Green's going to throw out there on Wednesday?
I mean, we're going to have BI and Zion and CJ and DeJounte. They're going to have to play those 4. And then the question is just what you do after that. I guess you just throw all of them out there with Herb and just do the thing and see how it starts, because it's just hard to argue any of them off the floor, just with where they are in their career, what they've meant to teams, what they've produced, what they've accomplished in the past. It's hard to say that any of them, like Daniel Tice, is not in the realm of any of those players.
Yeah.
But he is a viable center. So yeah, I think I'm going that way. I think I'm going Herb plus the dudes.
I think it could be fun. I think there's a chance, we look at like 5 games at that lineup. We're like, wow, we're outscoring the other team by 8 points per 100 possessions with our small ball lineup on the floor. That's awesome. I think all that can be true. I think it can help alleviate some of the questions I have about offensive fit, just because, all 5 of those dudes can pass, dribble, and shoot. My thing is basically just, I don't think it's sustainable over an 82 game season. That's really my hang up. Like, I think it can work in a short amount of time. I don't think you can run the entire marathon that way. I think the Pelicans know that too. I mean, I think we all know this roster is going to look different at the end of the season. So if that's what it is, hey, I'll be there. I mean, I'll be there either way, but I'll be excited to watch
You're
it.
going to be there. You're going to be there hearing that they're going to take 43s a game, and you're going to like it.
I mean, they took 38 per game in the preseason. If they're doing this small ball group, I mean, maybe they can actually flirt with it this year.
Look, they will need to be special offensively for this to work. They're going to need this to be when that small ball unit is on the floor, they're going to need to be a top 5 offense. And everything else, like everything they lack defensively with their size, they're going to have to make up for in transition. That was another thing that we did see during the preseason. Transition in both directions was a plus and was really, really aggressive. And you love seeing that, because I think we've seen them in the past, like pull up a little bit and allow the defense to catch up to them and everything, because you're running Jonas Valanciunas down the court. They don't have that issue anymore. That doesn't exist. There's no anchor. So you're getting down the floor, and you need to, because you need as much advantage as you can create. more shot attempts from offensive rebounds, more high percentage looks because you have the defense running backwards. They're going to need those things and top 5 offense from that small ball unit, or it's not going to work. And so we're going to find out. Like, we're going to have very convicted takes 10 games in. We are, because we'll just see this stuff, and it will either be great or it will struggle, and they do not have time to play around.
No, they that is one thing about it. I mean, that's the beauty of the games, man. We can sit here and talk about all this stuff, and we want to take 43s per game, and we're going to try to be, play more of our players who are offensively inclined this year. When the real games start and you lose a game or two, people revert back to what's comfortable. I mean, it's just, yeah, all this hot air that, we've been spewing for weeks, it doesn't matter. That's why I'm excited to have the games back. It plays itself out. All right, Adam, Monday is the deadline date for Trey Murphy and the Pelicans to get an extension done. Trey Murphy's going into the final year of his rookie contract. Everything I've heard on this is I anticipate a deal getting done. I think Trey Murphy and the Pels will be able to work something out. I think it's going to be a big number, but I just think both sides, and this is just my prediction, maybe I'm wrong, but I think both sides will be motivated to get this done. I mean, Trey Murphy, this is going to be life-changing money, and the Pelicans, this is an excellent young player who fits on any NBA team. He really complements the most talented player the Pelicans have, Zion Williamson. I think they're motivated to get this done too, and just not let it get to restricted free agency.
Yeah, and I think it's just, you do need some roster certainty when you have so much uncertainty with Brandon Ingram. I think it also just, behooves all the parties to not have done this early and created even more pressure around BI and all of that, because now you got another dude locked down on a big number. This contract seems too easy to do not to do it. The Jaden McDaniels blueprint contract is there. You can escalate beyond that by a few million a year and still feel very comfortable in the future on an escalating deal. This is
what's the Jaden Daniels deal, to give people an idea?
Yeah, so he's sitting at about 28 million a year. I don't remember I didn't pull the number, but he's sitting at about 28 million a year. I think it escalates from 25 to 28. And that felt big at the time for where he was, because you're like, okay, really, really good defender, but his shooting is like kind of up and down. Trey, it's kind of the inverse. The shooting is elite. Like he's an elite floor spacer, and the defense is waffled, but similar size, similar roster, or similar rotational flexibility, similar ability to match up on guys. Like it's a good comp. It's like the house next door that's got the same layout as yours, and maybe the bathrooms on the bottom floor instead of the top. So now we know there's a ton of money coming in. We know expansion teams are coming. There's all this gambling money. There's the new TV deals. Where the salary cap's going to be by the time this contract is ending, you're worried about the percentage of cap they're going to take up, not the number. Like, don't be alarmed when you're like, oh my God, he's going to be making $32 million in the last year of this deal. You should, because max contracts at that point are going to be like $70 million. So he's going to be at like a 20-ish% or below 20% roster percentage number in terms of that, like what that contract covers. So yeah, it's just there. If it escalates into more cap space in the future, it just makes sense. Makes sense to have him locked down. Makes sense to get the roster certainty. I just don't think the numbers that they could dispute. I don't think he's got an incredible case for getting like the maximum he can get. And they don't have a great case for going cheap on him either, because the whole league would want him. So yeah, it just feels like there's not anything stopping it from happening.
Yeah, last October, Jaden McDaniels, Devin Vassell with the Spurs both got extensions worked out with their teams that were, in the neighborhood of $130 million guaranteed over 5 seasons. I think those are two references, just to keep in mind as we close in here on the Trey Murphy deadline date. If I'm the Pelicans, like, I just want Trey Murphy a part of my future. I mean, say something unexpected happens, they want to pivot. Well, guess what? Trey Murphy fits with that pivot. If they want to keep building around Zion, that works. If for whatever reason they change their mind I don't want to say change their mind, but things are way different in March and they're like, hey, look, we want to do BI and Trey and the Zion thing's not working out. That works. I mean, Trey, he just fits into any future that you want for yourself. I mean, he's young, good character guy. I think, cares about getting better. So I would just want to get that done. And I would want to get 5 years, no player option, because I just want him here. I want him here for the next half decade.
Let me call out the Jaden McDaniels contract just to get the reference dead on. So it was a 5-year, 131, and it's escalating from 23 million in the first year to 30 million in the last year. Those numbers don't matter. The number in the column next to it, cap percentage, is the one that matters. Starts off at 16% of your cap. By the time the contract finishes at the highest number on the contract, 14.5%. For a guy that could very well be a top 4 player on your team, being in the teens of your cap percentage is a good place to be, especially when you expect him to be a little higher than that. Like, there will be debate over the next couple of years where Trey lands in the hierarchy, whether he could be the 3rd best player in a team. You want to kind of bet on that. You feel decent about the chances of that in the future. And it's not like he's going to become an immobile asset on that number at that point either.
I think that's Windhorst thing. If it was a good deal for a team, his test is, can they trade that player immediately? And I mean, if you get Trey 5 years, 130 million, 5 years, 135 million, yeah, you can definitely could definitely trade him immediately if you wanted to. They wouldn't want to, but I think that's a pretty good way of looking at it. If you sign him to it, could you move him the next day?
Yep. So nothing in the way. Hope we do hear that it gets done. It's going to make the fan base really happy. People have been kind of waiting on this one, hoping that it's going to get through. I think it would be very uplifting to start the season that way, especially knowing that he's on the shelf, because of course he's on the shelf because we're the Pelicans. All right. You want to talk about some net flax?
Yeah. Yeah, man. The Starting 5 documentary, I am working my way through it right now. I'm almost done. Anthony Edwards, LeBron James, Jimmy Butler, Jason Tatum, Domantas Sabonis, all of them are featured. If you haven't checked it out yet, it's, kind of in the vein of, the Formula One documentary, the golf like there's a
Full Swing, all that.
Yeah, there's a documentary about every professional league now, showing you, hey, behind the scenes, this is kind of what it's like. I want to give it 3 stars out of 5, 3.5 stars, maybe. I mean, I've certainly enjoyed it. I don't think it's been the most revelatory thing in the world. I think the Anthony Edwards, LeBron James, and Jimmy Butler portions were all compelling, and the Jason Tatum and Domantas Sabonis sections were not compelling at all. I just think Jason Tatum and Domantas Sabonis are kind of boring people, and if you're like the Celtics or the Kings GM or owner, that's probably a great thing. I would love to have a boring superstar who's just like, yeah, I care. Like, the only thing I care about is getting better in my family. I would love to have those problems.
Yeah, it's I would personally, much to the chagrin of some people, I'm sure, I'll take LeBron and throw him in the boring group too, just because it's all the same, like, cartoonishly pre-written stuff. Like, it couldn't feel more scripted than it is. Like, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna drink a glass of wine, whole bottle of wine, because I do wine. I'm a wine guy, in case anybody doesn't know. I'm a wholesome dad wine guy.
Well, did you think so? There's a scene in there where I guess they celebrate Halloween a lot in the James household. They get really into Halloween and they hire makeup artists in really elaborate costumes. I guess my question about the LeBron stuff is, have you viewed, him and family time as that being an authentic of representation of what it's like when the cameras aren't there or not? Because I think I have, actually. Like, I thought that stuff was great. I was like, man, he seems, like he's just definitely in his goofy dad era right now. And I thought it was endearing.
Yeah, no. So, like, it's like, as a dad, it's cool to see it. Like, he's obsessed. He's delusional about his own kid on the national stage right now. Like, it's the most relatable thing about him. The most relatable thing LeBron James has ever done is overestimate the abilities of his kid and passionately defend. Like he's the dad that wants his kid on the all-star team and thinks you cheated by picking the other kid. Like, and that's great. We have had those parents. I had that dad. I was like, what do you mean he didn't make the all tournament team? So like I get that part. Like that part is nice, but I've been seeing that like already. So when it comes to like revelatory, like I just, I'm just tired of like the wine thing. And like, I want like, show me a little friction, show me like one little like actual negative piece. Otherwise it's all the same thing that you always give me. This is going to do for the people in here. We already love Anthony Edwards because he's like the most authentically himself NBA player. Like that is just a dude from Atlanta. That is a dude from Atlanta. And he is just going to be what it is. And you got to love it because he is both arrogant and also talented enough to be that arrogant. And there's just not that many of those guys anymore. And while that's cool, like every minute you get with him, just like people throw the word aura around a lot, like you're just gonna enjoy watching him do anything. You could put him in a room full of nothing and I would probably smile.
It's so real. It's so real.
Yeah. It's so messy that it can't be scripted. He's so all over the place and it's always on like level 7 to 11 that like, this is just who this dude is.
So two Anthony Edwards notes from this documentary, which amused me. Number one, he apparently does not know how to pack a bag. He's got a support system around him, and one of his uncles is his professional bag packer. I'm sure his uncle has other jobs too, but Anthony Edwards literally does not know how to pack a suitcase, and it appears that all he wears are sweatsuits too. He's not really like out there wearing really nice dress shirts, suits. He's just wearing sweatsuits. But yeah, his uncle has got that on lock. And two, it was really funny when, the whole Edwards clan came over to his house for Thanksgiving Day. And his sister is like, hey, company's here. Are you going to get off the video game? He's like, yeah, in a few minutes.
He's just a giant kid. He's a giant, super muscular, high flying, hyper speed, defensive and offensive monster child. It's also cool specifically for Jimmy Butler to do this now. Jimmy Butler just had a really rough season in the NBA that, lost his father in the middle of the season. They didn't talk about it. It was very quiet. The team and everybody knew. They didn't expand on that stuff in the public. They just had him missing a bunch of games. And when he did come back, he didn't look like himself. That's hard stuff to go through. We're finding out about it now. And you're also just getting to experience like Jimmy's a character. We know stories about him. We know like little snippets of like these dynamically like angry or competitive things he's done. It's cool to see the obsessive coffee dude who's just a little bit of a weirdo and just lives that way and is cool with it.
Yeah, they identified somebody in the background as Jimmy's in-house barista.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, he's got his little coffee company where he's trying to charge like, an absolutely disgusting amount of money for a cup of coffee. But, hey, he was making his own little cappuccino, trying to do his little latte art and everything. Like, I can relate. I had a coffee.
I thought his latte art looked good. I thought that leaf looked good.
Yeah, it was pretty all right. It's cool to see that stuff. Like, look, especially for the dude that is hyper competitor, like staged a whole thing so that he could go dunk on his teammates and then tell Rachel Nichols about it. It's just cool to see like the quirky side that's behind like the emo hairdo and all that stuff and just like understand that part of him too. He's just all over the place. Much like Anthony Edwards.
He's the Dos Equis most interesting man in the world. That's Jimmy Butler. He's this amazing basketball player and he loves country music and he hires some musicians and he's trying to make music with them and record it and put out an album. And he loves dominoes and he's the psycho competitor, but he seems like just a great hang off the court too. I mean, most interesting man in the world.
Yeah, I think it's going to do him. I think it's going to do him a lot of good with fans. I think it's important that people know what happened last year and that, we're going to talk about it in his time now, but at least like you could wonder, Pat Riley had some pretty heated things to say about him in the offseason, like about how last season went. Pat Riley was not thrilled about it, and Jimmy's looking for a new contract. So he's the most interesting player of the five in terms of like, what is the outcome going to be this year and how you're going to feel about him relative to his performance last year coming out of this documentary.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, Jason Tatum,
Boring.
just, man, I mean,
so boring.
He is
Drew
like
Hanlon clips.
Man, I mean, just the best vanilla ice cream in the world, I mean, yeah, I mean, he plays ball, dotes on his son. Like, he seems like a great guy, like genuinely like a great guy, great son. I mean, it was super cool, seeing like those clips with his pops, and his dad was like, yeah, I'm really hard on him, and he didn't love it at times, but it worked out in the end. We have a great relationship. All that was cool, but I was like, man, this guy is just boring.
Hey, that vanilla is from the highest mountaintops, picked by hand. It's the tastiest vanilla you've ever had, and you're gonna like it. Damn it!
I mean, it would be great to have that as your franchise guy. I mean, that's what you guys had with Drew Brees a little bit, right? Like Drew Brees, he's pretty
super wholesome and boring.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying if you're the subject of a documentary, maybe it's not a great thing.
Great that you brought up Drew, because we can segue into something not on the outline where he's kind of instructed the fan base to welcome Sean Payton back to the Superdome and then boo him. And I was like, you're gonna give us that much credit? You think this city of all places that he wanted to leave and like complained about for a couple of years before abandoning and then immediately coaching another team, you think we're just going to like let him off the hook because you were like asked nicely? Come on, man. It's New Orleans.
I'd like to announce that we are launching a paid from the wing tier where for $100 a month, I'm just going to like spill all the airline drive tea. No, I'm not going to do that. But man, that is a fascinating place. I mean, I think people are afraid to like tell the truth about it all sometimes. I think, they care a lot about controlling the narrative. I would just say, like, I would love to see a great book writer come in and just do a story about New Orleans and like heavily feature all of that stuff and get all the details. It's just a fascinating place, man. It is a fascinating place.
We need to get Wright Thompson, because if anybody could do the intersection of sports and like the weird community, he's on a book tour right now for The Barn, which goes into like sports intertwining with Emmett Till and like it. I have 3 of his books. I'm probably going to get The Barn too, because like I connect with the things that Wright Thompson cares about. Granted, he did also write a book on bourbon, so of course I have that one. But like, he's the perfect guy. The intersection, like sports, Catholic Church, Cajun traditions, football, baseball. Like, who better to do that than him?
Wright Thompson reads the Times-Picayune in print, and I only know this because he emailed me one time last year. Hey, nice story, man. I read it in print today. I was like, oh, that's cool. Thank you. That was nice of you to say.
Like, this doesn't mean anything to you because I'm not a journalist, but like that would make my life if Wright Thompson told me I was doing a good job.
Well, it kind of freaked me out a little bit because I'm like, man, a lot of days I'm just putting slop out there, and he's reading that.
Come here, piggy.
Yeah, I gotta write every day. Yeah, I gotta write every day, man. I mean, some days there's just I'm not writing poetry out here, and I know you're reading it now. It's freaking me out a little bit.
Now I'm nervous that my content needs to be better. Damn it.
Yeah. That's a good candidate right there. It would be fun if like Jonathan Martin is, I think, a popular political journalist, like, a really accomplished political journalist just turn their attention towards, I'm just going to like really shine a light on these last 10, 15, 20 years at airline drive. And there's been like there's been a lot of good, to be clear. I mean, like, you know, what those people did, and Sean and Drew, like, it's amazing and awesome. And hey, I'm not
There
gonna
have been
tell
other
I'm
things.
not gonna tell fans what to do. Do whatever you want to do. You know, do whatever you think is right.
It's just bold to think that especially during this season, like Sean Payton's coming in here with Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos, and that's what he chose, and he just like left us, just abandoned us, and was already like whining the last 2 years before he was gone. Like, I respect the hell out of him, and we will forever. He's probably the most important person in New Orleans Saints history, and he, who knows how long that lasts? Probably a really long time, maybe forever, as long as the NFL does, which is hard to imagine the end. But you still left us, and you're coaching against us. You can have claps later. You're not getting them today. I am still sour.
I think this series of stories that Jeff Duncan has done, where he went out to Denver before the season started and he talked to Peyton for like 3 hours. I've enjoyed those series of stories. I mean, one of them that ran before the season, Sean, a lot of it was basically just like, yo, look how much money the Broncos owners have. Like, we are just dripping money out here. And, you know, I think that is just, people go other places and they see it's like there's just a different level of resources. I thought it was an interesting column.
They did, you know, when Sean got there, like, we did find out that Russell Wilson had his own front office. So that's pretty wild. So it's and also, like, I did enjoy him going in there and then immediately doing all the Sean Payton things, because like we know him pretty well. Like, as soon as you find out that Russell Wilson's got a glass door that says Russell Wilson on it, like, that's the end of that. That's not continuing. You're going to go sit next to everybody else in the locker room. You do not have sacred space. You are an employee. Get back in your uniform. I'll see you on the field. Yeah, look, he's an offensive genius that, you know, was the best play caller in the NFL for a little while there and got us a Super Bowl. He's a legend. Boo him now. Thank him later on.
Thursday night's going to be appointment viewing. Wednesday night next week is going to be appointment viewing because the Pelicans are playing the Bulls in the regular season opener. I think we're going to be talking to you guys before then. We'll definitely be talking to you after. We appreciate you listening all throughout training camp, the preseason. And hey, man, the real games are here. We're almost here.
We're finally there. We're finally there. Stick around. Let's figure out this center thing. Let's keep Zion rolling, and we'll talk it out. We're here for you. We'll talk it out. We'll get ourselves through 10 games and then another 10. And we'll just, you know, hope that everybody's hanging around with us, much like our listeners. We're hoping the team is also hanging around with us at game 20 and game 30. And we can just figure out this beautiful mess of ours that we call the New Orleans Pelicans.